Hey everyone, welcome. This is Jason Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. It is Monday, February 24th, and we are live from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios. We're live on 98.7 Walk by Faith and 1420 AM. We're live on 987radio.com. If you want to listen to us on the internet, if you want to watch us on social media, we're at the Rock Health and Wellness Centers on Facebook, at Health from the Rock on YouTube, and Jason Clemmons, DC on X. Hey, it's Monday night. It's Take Health to Church night. We got part two of Cry Uncle. If you listened to last Monday night, I thought it was great. It talks about the mercy of God and the mercy of Jesus. Tonight is what we're going to get into. So that's going to be our show for this evening. And so I hope you guys will stick around and listen for it. I got an article sent to me today, and I thought I'd just share it with you before we get into taking health to church. And it is scientists just found, it's always great when they say that, right? But it's kind of fun. We're doing some stuff. Scientists just found a major problem with vitamin B12 guidelines, and your brain might be at risk. This comes in a SciTech Daily publication or whatever this is right here. A new study suggests that older adults with lower B12, even within the accepted range, show signs of cognitive decline and brain damage. Researchers found that these individuals had slower thinking and reaction times, along with white matter lesions linked to dementia. And it goes on to say, getting the recommended amount of B12 is essential for making DNA, red blood cells, and nerve tissue. But new research suggests that meeting the minimum requirements may not be enough, especially for older adults. And I've made that observation in the teachings that I've gotten when Dr. Murphy and all, since 2009, all the studies, and even back in chiropractic school in 2000, whatever it was, 2002, 2003, we always said this same thing. It was like the wellness world knows this, that meeting the minimum requirements may not be enough. Meeting the minimum requirements is what keeps us from being sick in that deficiency area. Like if you don't have enough vitamin C, you get scurvy. But meeting a minimum level of vitamin C doesn't necessarily tell you what optimal levels of vitamin C is. There's like fish oil is the same thing. It's like, well, it's like you should have some fish oil. It's like, how much? Well, you need a little bit to keep you from getting sick, whatever. Vitamin D, same thing, right? Rickets. So if you don't have enough vitamin D, you'll get rickets, which is a bone deformity issue. But how much is an appropriate amount of vitamin D, right? And so that's what they're showing here. And this is for older adults. So if you guys are older, and this was a study of researchers at the University of California at San Francisco that found healthier older adults with lower B12 levels showed signs of neurological and cognitive decline. These individuals had more damage to the brain's white matter, the nerve fibers that enable different parts of the brain to communicate, and performed worse on tests measuring cognitive and visual processing speeds compared to those with higher levels of B12. The study was published in Annals of Neurology on February the 10th. So one of the senior authors on the paper made this comment. Previous studies have defined healthy amounts of B12 may have missed subtle functional manifestations of high or low levels that can affect people without causing overt symptoms. Revisiting the definition of B12 deficiency to incorporate functional biomarkers could lead to earlier intervention and prevention of cognitive decline. So, you get, your fish and your liver and your beef, your shellfish, your shrimp, mushrooms, all those things that you can get your B12 from. And you say, well, can I get too much B12? Well, according to National Institutes of Health, it says this, the FMB did not establish a UL for vitamin B12 because of its low potential for toxicity. Even at large doses, vitamin B12 is generally considered to be safe because it does not store excess amounts. The body does not store excess amounts. So, and there's a methylation pathway that can sometimes get disrupted and can lead to a homocysteine problem if you're not methylating properly. And that could cause some damaging effects inside your body. Maybe one day this week we'll go over that pathway again. But one of the easy ways to bypass that is to take methylated B12, and that's what we have here at the office. So if you're interested in B12, you don't think you're getting enough, you want to address cognitive decline. That's just some new information, some new research that's out that might be interesting to you. One more thing that I want to share with you, and I can't believe it's taken me a little bit long to. I mean, we got sunshine in Lubbock today, so it's actually kind of hot, but is for the kids, and I don't know if I mentioned this on Friday or not, but there's two different supplements. I just want to make sure that I do mention it tonight before we get into taking health to church. But this is a supplement that we carry here in the office. And, there's a lot of virus stuff going around and a lot of measles and all the rest of that stuff that's going around. This is a supplement called ViraKid, and it's from Orthomolecular. ViraKid is a children's chewable formula that boosts immune function and provides support for immune challenges. Elderberry has been shown to provide effective, immediate immune support, and the distinct purple color creates a fun element for kids. So if you're interested in that, I just want to make sure I mention that to you guys. I may have done it on Friday, but the ingredients there, vitamin A, 200 micrograms, vitamin C, zinc, and then elderberry and astragalus. And so those are some things there that will help support your child's immune system if they're dealing with viruses. There also is an adult version of that same thing called ViraSid, and it's the same thing. AEC, it's got the B12 in there, and then pantothenic acid, zinc, and then a whole bunch of these herbs to go along with it. So it includes a powerful combination of key nutrients and botanical extracts that provide support for immune challenges. So if you feel like you're needing to fight something off, then those are two supplements that you might be interested in. ViraSid for adults and ViraKids for the kids. So, all right, let's get into it. Let's take health to church tonight. And for all you guys that are not familiar with what we do on Monday nights, we take the lesson that from Hillside Church here in Lubbock, and Hillside Church actually has 11 campuses, I think, is all over kind of West Texas, this Northwest Texas area. But I take the lessons that I learned at Hillside Church, and I basically just recopy that same. So I'm plagiarizing the lesson. I hope that's okay. I think it's okay at church. I think you can plagiarize the lesson from church. I think that's part of the teaching is what goes along with that. So what we do is we take the lessons from church, and then on Monday nights, we see if we can apply them to health. And that's what we do. And I think it's great. It's a lot of fun. And I know we've gotten some good feedback on what we do with taking health to church. And so we're in part 2 of Cry Uncle. And they use the example of, when you used to play Mercy out on the playground and you used to lock fingers with each other. The guys used to do it. The girls didn't really do it because the girls are more intelligent than guys usually. And so, but the guys were locking fingers together and then try to bend each other's fingers back and make the other person cry mercy. They give up, right? Or they cry uncle. Either way, or you can cry calf rope. That's what we said last week. That's what was in my house when you decided to give up. You called calf rope. Well, this is taking church, and so what I kind of want to do tonight is I want to really just kind of walk through this a little bit, and then tie it back into health. I mean, we'll kind of see how it works out, but I'm really interested to see this because some people think that when they walk into a church, they're going to feel guilt and shame. I think I said this in one of the shows, maybe last week, but I went to a book club one time and I met with a whole group of people that were very different. Is a very different group, and we would pick a book and then we'd read a chapter or whatever, and then the next Monday or whatever day it was, we'd go in there and we'd talk about the book, and um, we talked about a couple different times, and they started talking about Jesus. And the things that they said um, were very shocking to me. Um, it was very interesting, I guess is the right way to put it, because they were talking about a Jesus that I didn't know. I never heard of this guy that they're talking about. The Jesus that I know is the same Jesus that I was taught when I was a little kid, and it's the same Jesus that I know as a grown man. Like, it's the same story. It's the same guy. Every time I read it, I see it the same way. Like, it's like a loving, sacrificing, caring, mature, wise. You would think if you're like the Son of God, you'd think you'd be pretty wise. But it's it was just like a forgiving, calm, knowing. You know how, like, you ever had a kid that just has a rough day? Like, as a parent, have you ever had a child that's just having a rough day out there, and you understand it? You understand why they're having a rough day. Like, it's not new to you. It's new to them, but it's not necessarily new to you while they're having such a rough day, right? Um, and so you already know what's going on in their life, and you understand why they're frustrated, and you've got enough patience to just be able to walk them through it, right? Happens a lot of times here in a chiropractic office the same way. It's like we you just know that this person is going through this thing, but they're going to be okay. They don't know that they're going to be okay, but they're going to be okay. And you're just it's kind of like, I've already seen this movie play out, and you're not that bad, and we can help you, and you're going to be fine. And so I have to just kind of be patient with them and let them understand it, right? And that's the Jesus that I've always known. And so when you think, if you're feeling guilty, if you're afraid to go to church because you're afraid to admit the things that you do or the things that you've done, you'll be really surprised to find out that that's not the Jesus that's there waiting on you. It's not a Jesus of I told you so. It's not a Jesus of pointing his finger at you and waiting on you to mess up so he could just, slam your hand in a door or something like that. It's not the Jesus that I know. And I don't think that and that's I think the scripture is pretty clear on that. I'm sorry, this microphone is wearing me out tonight. So um, the reason that I really think this fits into wellness is because your body exactly is the same way. Like, you think you've gone too far, and so it's too late. Well, I've gone too far, and it's just too late, so I might as well just shut it down because I can't do anything about it anyway, right? Like, I've spent too many years not taking care of my body, and it's too late. There's nothing I can do. Like, I'm just already worn out. I'm too old. I'm already worn out. I screwed up this week. I drink too many Cokes. Like, whatever your thing is, right? And you may feel this guilt and shame that goes along with wanting to start wellness. Well, I'll just present for your consideration that your body's just waiting on you. Your body is waiting on you to just be well. Like, it wants to be well. It's not going to hold it against you. There may be some issues you got to work through, but it's not trying to hold it against you. Your body is waiting on you to be well. And that what the scripture says is really good. And we mentioned this one last week in Lamentations 3:21-23. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. There are new, they are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. And that is so true. It's like his compassions never fail, and your body's the same way. It's like, look, there's hope. There's hope to start doing things right. I had a conversation with a 66-year-old today, and she started doing things right. And it's like, there's a good chance that someday she'll be 96. And it's like, that's 30 years from now. What do you want over the next 30 years of your life? I had a conversation with my 81-year-old guy, or 82, I don't know how old he is now. He was working out this morning, and he's getting better in the last year since he started working out. He's better than he was before. Like, he is actually on an upward trajectory now. At 81 years old, he's on an upward trajectory. He rode the bike for 2 minutes. He did farmer carries with 20 pounds. He did 8 sit-ups. Then he did overhead carries with a 10-pound medicine ball. And then he did 10 crunches. And he repeated that for 30 minutes this morning. I don't know how many rounds he got in 30 minutes, but he repeated that workout for 30 minutes this morning. And he's 81 years old. Now, I had to stand next to him and make sure he didn't fall over when he stood up, but he got up by himself. He got down on the ground, did 8 sit-ups, and then got up off the ground. And I didn't really touch him. I just stood there and make sure he didn't fall backwards. And then he kept going for that whole time. And while he was walking, he was carrying those weights. I was like, all right, get your eyes up on the exit sign. Because he was walking with his head down, looking at the ground in front of him. And I said, no, get your eyes up and look at the exit sign. And he thought I meant walk to the exit sign. And I said no. Maybe I need to speak louder. But I said, no, I'm not telling you to walk to the exit sign. I'm telling you to get your eyes up. Get your eyes up while you're walking. And he's just doing so much better. Every day he gains. He told me about he was out working in the garden all weekend long, and he was got his garden ready for all of his planting stuff. And he's telling me about his onions that he already planted, and he had some water barrel that he was fixing and all this sort of thing. At 81, he was just out there getting it done. And I was like, good for him. Like, there's hope, right? There's hope every day. There's a promise of hope in your health. Every day, if you just start doing healthy things, you'll start moving towards health. And if you don't do healthy things, you'll start moving towards hell. Just take the TH off the end of it. Change the spelling around a little bit. And now, instead of finding health, what you're going to find is hell. And we know that because we know those people have gone through that stuff, right? So, last week we talked about God delights to show mercy because God is rich in mercy. And it was this Ephesians 2, 4, and 5. But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ, even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by grace you have been saved. And that's never more obvious than in your body. I was having a conversation with one of my ladies today, and we were talking about something, and I said something about saying a prayer. Like, I said, I can't even say the prayer at Thanksgiving, because when I start to pray and I start to say thank you for the blessings that you've bestowed upon us, I get so overwhelmed with emotion these days. Like, I'm at the point where Jacob says the prayer at my house because I can't get through the prayer. Because I have so much emotion in the gratitude, in the appreciation. I have so much appreciation for the things that I've learned. And I have so much appreciation for being made alive with Christ. That there is a ministry working in me and through me. That I have seen a little glimpse of what heaven looks like. By the deeper amounts of study, like just a little glimpse maybe in different places of my life. And it is by grace that I've been saved. And it's like, amen. Like and I got saved by I don't know how many billionth people I am since the beginning of people, but it hasn't run out. There's no ending to the amount of saving that can be done because he has no limits. He is um, he's limitless in his ability to save us. And this week, what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about how Jesus shows mercy. So it's a pretty good story we're going to get into in Matthew. So I'm going to read it first. I'm going to read all the way through it, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to break it down line by line, and we're going to talk about each one of these lines as we're going through. So what we're talking about is Matthew 20, and this is verse 29 through 34. And it says this, Matthew 20, verse 29 through 34. It says this, as Jesus and his disciples were leaving Jericho, a large crowd followed him. 2 blind men were sitting by the roadside, and when they heard that Jesus was going by, they shouted, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us. The crowd rebuked them and told them to be quiet, but they shouted all the louder, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us. Jesus stopped and called them. What do you want me to do for you? He asked. Lord, they answered, we want our sight. Jesus had compassion on them and touched their eyes. Immediately, they received their sight and followed him. And, when you just read that by itself, and you just read it all the way through, and you don't really slow down and think about that, you can miss the depth of it. It really, that passage has some serious depth in it. And what they did yesterday, and I listened to Pastor Jonathan, that yesterday, and they really did show the depth of this passage right here. So what I want to do is I want to go take this and break it down each line by line. So it says, it's Matthew 20, 29 through 34. So the first verse is, as Jesus and his disciples were leaving Jericho. Now, I don't know if you guys have watched The Chosen. We caught up with it. I don't know if they got some new episodes just recently, but we caught up with The Chosen, and we watched it from the beginning all the way through all the seasons. And the last scene of the last episode was where Jesus he gets on the donkey, and now he's leaving, and he's headed towards Jerusalem. And this is the time. They left Jericho, and he was headed towards Jerusalem. And what was going to happen in Jerusalem? Like, he was going to be welcomed as the Messiah by a certain group of people, and then he was going to have to face Pontius Pilate and that whole thing. And then by the end of the week, he's going to be crucified. And then as soon as that was over, 3 days later, he was going to be raised from the dead. Now, the show Chosen and the ones I've seen in the past have done an excellent job of portraying the depth of the weight of the burden that Jesus carried that day. Like when he left Jericho, he knew where he was going, and he knew what was going to happen, and he knew that was going to be the end of his life. And he'd already started telling his disciples, and he tried to explain to them multiple times. And he's like, "Look, like my time here is short." And they didn't really understand it. And I saw it, and I really understood it, because sometimes as a business owner, sometimes as a doctor, but when you're a single doctor office and you're not in some sort of affiliation with some big hospital, you're not just a doctor, but you're also a business owner. Like, I'm a small business owner in Lubbock. Very small. But I'm a small business owner in Lubbock, and I have a lot of things on my mind. I have a lot of things on my mind every day, all the days. And I deal with a lot of people who have their thing on their mind. I deal with staff who has their thing on their mind. I have a wife who she has her thing on her mind, right? And it's me a lot of times because she takes care of me. But she, she doesn't necessarily know all of the things that I'm thinking about. And she doesn't necessarily know all of the burdens that I might carry. And I'm not by any means trying to, um, make out like I'm some big deal. I'm just saying that I can feel, I can feel to whatever degree I'm able to understand it, what Jesus must have felt like when he left Jericho headed to Jerusalem. Knowing that he has all these people counting on him, knowing that in just a very short time, he's fixing to get nailed to a cross. Like that has got to be a heavy thing on your mind right there. And to be able to operate and function, to be able to function and stay true to who you are in such a heavy time. And then when we get back from the break, we'll talk about the other side of this thing and like what he actually does to help the blind man on the road right there. Like it's quite amazing if you think about it. If you think about what Jesus is going through and where he's headed and all the group that's around him and then what he does, and when we get back from the break, we'll talk about it. So stick around, we'll be right back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, and we're taking health to church. Hey, if you got any questions or comments, want to send us a chat or anything, feel free to do that. I'm going to hold off and carry the rest of this as soon as we get back from the break. The radio, we got to go to a break on the radio. Yeah, if you got anything going on out there, let me know. Iced tea. Iced tea with stevia. This is not a giant red. It is a giant red Solo cup. I don't even know if that's the brand, but it's full of iced tea. So, yeah, I just finished with patients at 5:45, and then got here and got the radio started, and didn't have time to. I didn't have time to take a drink. So, and it's hot. It's hot in here today. We don't have the air conditioner on in the building, and so I guess it got to be 80 something degrees today in Lubbock. Let's check that out right quick. 75 right now, so I don't know how high we got today, but it was beautiful. 79 tomorrow, 66 on Wednesday. We got a great week. Texas Tech's got a big basketball game tonight. Big Monday. Those guys are playing Houston right here in Lubbock. That ought to be a good game. Just a few more seconds and we'll get back live and we'll finish this up. It's a great passage, and it's a great passage for your spiritual life, our spiritual lives. It's a great passage for understanding our health as well. It's so cool when you can take the Bible and then use it to understand your health. Because when you start studying health, you really can start to see it in so many aspects of your life and in so many people's life, because it's common to every person. Like health is common to everyone. It doesn't matter what you do for a living. It doesn't matter if you're a man or woman. It doesn't matter if you're rich or old. It doesn't matter if you're black or white or Mexican or whatever. It doesn't make any difference. It's like it's our health, and health is universal. It doesn't matter where you're from, and it's health. And once you really start studying like we do, man, you start seeing it, and it's like, wow. And then you start reading your scripture, and then you can see like, wow, that does apply to our health. It's pretty inspiring. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. We're taking health to church tonight. We're in Matthew 20, verse 29 through 34, and we're talking about Jesus and his disciples were leaving Jericho. So he's got a lot on his mind, right? He's got some heavy heart. He's got lots of things to think about. And then let me get over here because that's blocking me a little bit. But so the next part says, two blind men were sitting by the roadside. And back in the day, if you were blind, that basically sets you up for a life of poverty and begging. Like, unless you had some sort of wealth, which not very many people had, if you were blind, it was like there was nothing for you. Like, it was very, very tough. You just sat there on the side of the road and just begged. Like, you lived in poverty. You didn't have anything. You couldn't do anything. And unless you had someone in your family that constantly, I mean, that's 24-hour care, right? So these guys sitting by the roadside, like, it's a rough deal for them. And then it goes on to say, and when they heard that Jesus was going by, they shouted, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us." So the Son of David, and this was from the pastor yesterday, broke this down. It says, Son of David signifies the Messiah. And they all knew that a Messiah was coming at some point. And so the Messiah would have the power to restore sight. So these guys, believing that Jesus was the Messiah, that they had heard the stories of Jesus, and they believed that Jesus was the Messiah, that is the key part to this thing. They believed that he was the Messiah, and they knew, based on their teaching, that the Messiah had the ability to restore sight to the blind. Like, this was their answer. These guys that had been living in this life of poverty and begging, this was their answer. It was like, this is the guy right here. Like, he's coming by. He's walking right in front of me right now. Like, the one chance I got, the one chance I've got in all of time, in all of my life, the one chance I've got is right here, right now, in front of me. And so they cried out to him, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us." And then what happened to the crowd? It's so typical. This line right here hasn't changed at all. This is exactly the same thing that we get today. The crowd rebuked them and told them to be quiet. The crowd was too busy with their own agenda to care enough about these two guys that are sitting on the side of the road that have one shot. I mean, this is an 8-mile moment right here. You got one shot. You got one opportunity. This is the chance. You don't get another chance. Like, you're not going to get your sight restored tomorrow. As soon as this guy walks by, this is all you got. And so they cried out to him, and the crowd said, "Hey, shut up. Be quiet. You're bothering the Messiah. Like, who do you think you are? Like, be quiet." Yeah. You know, with the social media world that we live in today, that we live in a world where the society rebukes people relentlessly. We will rebuke people unbelievably. I mean, these poor Mennonite people that have been acting the same way as long as anybody can remember. They never changed anything ever. But all of a sudden, a couple of their kids get measles, and we got the New York Times coming to Lubbock. We got the New York Times down here in Seminole. We got people all over the place calling those people ignorant and stupid and foolish and anti-vaxxers and all this sort of thing. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, the crowd rebuked them. And it's like, it's no different than today, right? Can you imagine the frustration the blind men must have dealt with? The one who could heal them was walking right in front of them, and the others told them to hush. I could just be like, are you kidding me? This is great, right? And so it goes on to say, but they shouted all the louder, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on us. The reason they shouted all the louder is because they knew this was their one shot. They believed, they honestly, in their heart, believed that this was their one shot. They had defined their why on that day. They defined their true belief system. They're like, if this guy is really the guy, and everybody says he's the guy, then I got to get his attention. I got to get his attention. That this is my one chance. I can't, nothing would stop them. They just screamed louder because nothing would stop them. And then this one is one of the, it almost makes me emotional and brings tears to my eyes just thinking about this part of the passage right here when it said Jesus stopped. I mean, can you imagine that? Every time I hear the song, I can only imagine. I mean, doesn't that make you cry? Just get you down to your heart. Can you imagine that day where when you're right face to face with Jesus? I mean, it's like you're sitting there on the side of the road, and then all of a sudden, on one road, like in all the earth, like in one road in all the earth, you just happen to be on that road that day at that time on the same road with with Jesus, and then he stopped, and I mean, it's just like, whoa, like a father hears the cries of his children. Like any parent understands that. Any parent, you could be in a whole group. You could be in a whole group of crowded people, and if Caitlin called my name, I would hear Caitlin. Like if it doesn't matter how busy I am, if I was busy or stressed out, or I had the weight of the world on my shoulders, or whatever was going on in my life, if I heard my child's voice, and I heard the concern in my child's voice, it would stop me. I would stop. I would hear that, and I would stop. And that's exactly what Jesus did. He stopped. Even on his heaviest days, even knowing what he was walking into Jerusalem for, even knowing what was about to happen in his life, with the burden of the world on his shoulders, he was walking down the road and he heard his children cry to him, and he stopped and called them. What do you want me to do for you? He asked them. Lord, they answered, we want our sight. And what the pastor said yesterday was he's not exactly sure what that if that just signified their physical sight, like they didn't want to be blind anymore, or if it signified show me the way, like that, like it was because in the next passage. Well, let me just finish the thought right before we move on. But what the pastor said yesterday is we must have a need for mercy in order to receive it. They could have just as easily said, we want our health. That's what I thought. It's like we want the way, we want the answer, we want the blessing, we want the message, we want the hope, we want whatever it is that you got that you're selling. Like what are you selling us? Like that's what we want, right? We want to be able to see this whole thing physically, but we want to be able to see it spiritually as well. We want to be able to see the whole picture of all of it, and at the same time. I just think it's like it's so in depth right there when you really break it down and you think about it. And it says Jesus had compassion on them and touched their eyes. Immediately they received their sight and followed him. Now they don't know if they followed him according to the pastor yesterday. They don't know if they followed him from a standpoint of being a disciple, or they followed him because all the other people were following him because they were on the road to Jerusalem, or they didn't know what to do. But they received their sight. And I thought, there may be a time that we have been blinded to health. If we believe, we define our why, and we cry out, we take action, and we cry out in a way that nothing will stop us. I hear people talk about why they can't a lot. And every time I hear them talk about why they can't, I know that they haven't defined their why. Because what I truly believe about human beings is when you define what you're up to, when you really define what your intentions are and what your why is, there's nothing that can stop you. You're unstoppable. And you see it all the time. You just see people just go get it. And you just wonder, how did they do that? Like, how did they just go get it? How did they just become the best there was at whatever their thing is? I was listening to Pete Carroll in an interview this weekend. Pete Carroll is now the head football coach for the Los Angeles Raiders. He was the head football coach for the Seattle Seahawks. He was the head football coach at USC. And I heard Pete Carroll say something, and he was like, it's about discipline. It's about work ethic. It's about going to get it. And he said, you set your value. He said, you set your value. And if you're struggling with your value, then you haven't determined that you're worth anything more than what you're getting. And it just hit me right in the throat. I was like, crap. Like, what is the deal here? And he was saying that. He's like, you set your value. And I've been thinking about that all weekend long. And then I listened to, one of my patients came in, one of the very last patients. He said he was having dinner with a whole group of people last night. And all the people were telling him about their shoulder replacements and their knee replacements and their hip replacements. And he didn't say a word because he does 100 push-ups and 200 sit-ups, 240 sit-ups. He does 4 sets of 60. And I don't know how old he is. He's late in his 70s, I think. Maybe 80. I'm not, maybe he's not quite that old, but he's just built. He said, I've been doing 100 push-ups 3 times a week. And then on the other, that's on my lifting days. And then I lift. And then on the other 3 days, I do some sort of cardio for an hour. And he's been doing that forever. And he doesn't have a joint replacement. And he's like, but he told me, he said, all the people that he was having supper with last night were talking about this doctor in San Antonio, this lady doctor in San Antonio that does this special kind of surgery on knees. She replaces knees, and she comes in from the side instead of cutting through the middle. And it's way better surgery, and you heal much faster and all this sort of thing. And I just thought about that. I thought about what Pete Carroll said when I was talking to him and listening to him speak tonight. I thought about that, and I thought about the value that girl has created for herself. And people come from all over Texas and probably from all over the United States. But people leave Lubbock where there are multiple knee surgeons, and you can get your knee replaced by multiple orthopedic surgeons in Lubbock. And they leave Lubbock to go to San Antonio to get treatment from this gal in San Antonio. Why? Because she defined her why and she took action. She's unstoppable. She's just defined her why and she took action. And it's the same thing that the 2 blind guys did on the road that day. They're just like, look, this is my shot. This is the day. Today's the day. It's not tomorrow. It's not, I'll go to the gym tomorrow. It's not, well, I stop eating sugar tomorrow. It's not, well, I still got cake left over from Valentine's, or I still have, it's like whatever the thing is, right? It's like, no, it's like their one shot was right in front of their face. Their one shot was right in front of their face, and they didn't have another option but to take action right now. Cry out, get his attention. Jesus, hey, right here, look, hey, I need you right here. And that action step, it's like if we believe and cry out, we will be shown the way. If we really believe, I think that's the problem with health. I don't think we believe. I really don't think we think it matters. I really don't think we think that all the things that we do makes any difference on this earth. I think we've been sold a bill of goods by people who are trying to get our money, who don't care anything about us. Go back and watch the documentary on Netflix or Prime Video about the men who built America, something like that. It's something like that. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but something to that effect. They talk about Kellogg's and talk about Post Toasties, and they talk about Heinz ketchup, and they talk about Hershey's and all that sort of thing. None of those guys were doing that because they were trying to make the world a healthier place. They were doing all that stuff because they were trying to make money. That's what they were trying to do. And the food industry is set up in a way to try to make money. It's not about making people healthy. We got a thing going on right now that we're trying to go to Austin and get money to bring healthcare to rural communities. I talked to the doctor today that's doing that, and I said, "What are y'all going to do in those rural communities? Y'all going to build organic grocery stores and gyms in those communities?" I doubt it. I don't think that's what they mean when they're going to bring healthcare to rural communities. I think what they mean is they're going to bring more drugs to rural communities. That's what they're going to do, because they know that there's now another area that they can touch and make more money out of. And that's the problem that we have. And some of us have given into that, and we don't really think that it makes any difference that we become healthy. And so what do? We live with sickness, and we live with another medication, and we take another medication, and we take another medication. And it's like we're on a blood pressure and a statin and an anxiety pill and all this sort of thing. And it's like we got hope right in front of us. We got the way. It's crazy that it's right there in front of us. God had compassion on us from the very beginning. Think about this. God loved us so much when he created us that he only allowed us to have 0.5% of our consciousness, of our function controlled by consciousness. I was listening to Jordan Peterson talk to, I remember the guy, he's a Stanford neurologist this morning, wrote a book. I've been watching him with some of his YouTube stuff. And he was talking about saccades and how quickly you saccade and that's a frontal lobe, quick eye movement, and you do that all the time. He was talking about attention and how we pay attention and how many things are going on with us and we don't even know that's going on. It's all subconscious. Like we've got 100 billion neurons in our spinal cord, or whatever, a billion neurons in our spinal cord, and trillions of synapses in our brain, and whatever the numbers are. And all of that stuff is going on subconsciously. And God loved us so much that he handles 99.5% of it. Like innate intelligence. Innate intelligence handles 99.5% of it. All we have is 0.5%. That's how much compassion was shown to us from the very beginning of time. Like, it's like, dude, I got 99.5% of this. If you would just, in your 5%, just do healthy things, watch what happens to you. We don't even know. That's part of the reason I do this show. We do not know how well we could be if we were as well as we could be. We do not even know how good we could be. We haven't even tapped into how good we could be if we were as good as we could be. And just imagine what our world would be like if that was the case. Like if we would all, if Jesus was walking in front of us today, right in front of us today, would it make any difference? Like would we define what we're up to and just go get it? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we would. But if we did, watch out, man. Just watch out. And you say, well, it's kind of a new thought, right? No, it's been going on since Exodus, since way back, right? Exodus 3, 7 and 8. The Lord said, I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. I listen, I hear them, what they say, and I'm concerned about them. So I've come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Yeah, Old Testament, New Testament, and Old Testament examples. Whoops. It's that same story has been going on for a long time. And then you get into Romans, and in Romans 5, 6, it says, you see, at just the right time, this is Romans 5, 6 through 8. You see, at just the right time, when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous man, though for a good man, someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. While we didn't know what we were doing with our health, Christ took 99.5% of it on himself. You made it this far. You made it this far in spite of all of the choices that you made. We have made it this far in spite of all of the choices that we've made. In spite of all of the Snickers bars and all the Cokes and all of the candy and all of the breakfast burritos and all of the crap that I've eaten in my life, I've still somehow made it this far. And because he loved us that much that he gave us innate intelligence. Like, it's really, really kind of amazing, I think. And then the last scripture right here is Romans 10, 8 through 10, because that's what the pastor said. He read Romans 5, 6 through 8, but then he said, just going down a little bit further and listen to Romans 10, and this is 8 through 10. It says, but what does it say? The word is near you, and it is in your mouth and in your heart. That is, the word of faith we are proclaiming, that if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is with your heart that you believe and are justified. And it is with your mouth that you confess and are saved. What do you believe in your heart about what you're doing today? Do you believe in your heart that being healthy has anything to do with your mission that you have today? If you believe that in your heart, you got it made, because you'll confess it with your mouth, and then what we'll talk about here, hopefully this week, is it'll bring your attention to the things in that's what Jordan Peterson was talking about this morning in his interview. He was talking about. Let me just find it for you guys. He was talking about it was how to rewire your brain and shape your reality. Make decisions and shape your reality. And it was 4 days ago. Dr. Jordan B. Peterson sits down with neuroscientist, best-selling author, and PBS presenter Dr. David Eagleman. And they discuss brain plasticity, how perception works, whether it's free or exists. And that's what they were talking about. They were talking about attention. They were talking about how you pay attention, and how you pay attention is based on the questions that you're asking and the things that you're interested in. It's like and he used the example of going hiking. And he said, if you went hiking and you had a climatologist with you, they would start looking at the horizon and where the tree line is and all that sort of thing. But if you went with a podiatrist, that podiatrist on the hiking trip would be looking at people's feet and what kind of shoes they were wearing and the angles of their legs and all. If you looked at a chiropractor, we'd be looking at posture and movement and all the rest of that thing, right? And the point was, all of those pieces of information are there for us to see. They're all there for us to see. It just depends on where we put our attention. And each one of us puts our attention based on our value system, based on our why. And when we don't have a value system, then what we see is just anything that's in front of us, and we don't care about it, and then we just fill ourselves up with toxins, and we don't do the things that we're supposed to do because that's just what's in front of us. But once we define our why, and we really start to understand that it is important, then what we start to see is the tricks and the deceptions that and the cunning and craftiness of men and the way that things are working out. And it's like, oh, now I have a chance to avoid those things that entangle me. And it's with my heart, that belief system in my heart. And not my cardiac muscle, but my spiritual connection heart. So, that's all I got for you tonight. That's taking health to church. I hope that meant something to you. I hope it touched you in some sort of way. I hope it brought a little bit of knowledge and wisdom to your life. And we'll be back tomorrow night. No, we won't. I'm going to speak at the Wise Group tomorrow night. We've got a rerun show tomorrow night that we're going to rerun last Friday's show. So if you missed it, we're going to run it again tomorrow on the radio. And then we will not have a social media show tomorrow night. If you want to listen to me come speak about what's love got to do with it, go to the Lake Ridge Chapel tomorrow night at 5:30.